Dario. There we go. So, I'm actually going to finish up the notes first because it will help you, I think, with our lab piece. And then finish up the lab, and then I'll release the quiz for you to take. And whenever you're done with the quiz, you can just submit it and be done. So it's just 10 questions. It's not hard. It should be easy. Might even be easier than the last one. Okay, so that is my plan. Anything for the good of the order? Anything exciting going on with y'all? They did announce that next week. No, let me look at the calendar. Hang on. The 22nd and 3rd, I believe, are going to be picture days. So it's not next week, but the week after. Will be picture days on campus. Those of you that aren't coming on campus, they'll give more information, but those of you that aren't regularly coming on campus, one of the gold or green days, they'll be time in the afternoon for you to come and get your picture taken. So I'll let you know that that's coming up. Yeah, and next Monday's a holiday. And next Tuesday, I get my second vaccination, so life is good. We're excited. We get some rain coming in tonight. And let's go to, so yesterday I gave you the note sheet. So we did not quite finish talking about ionic compounds. We got all the way through binary compounds. And talking about the Roman numerals, using those, which we'll need today on our lab too. But the second part of that is naming ionic compounds with polyatomic ions, which is what your quiz is on. So process is really the same. You're still going to use the crisscross thing. So let's just get to it. And go. This bizarre looking picture is to talk about gypsum. Gypsum is sulfate, so or calcium sulfate, and it's also this is one other little piece of notation that we'll talk about more later. This is what we call a hydrate. So there's actually water molecules incorporated. So if you've ever done any, well, if you've ever had a cast or a traditional one, I don't know about the new ones. It's made of gypsum board or wall board. If you've ever done any building in your house, that's what the plaster wall board is, and plaster casts, right? So this is you put gauze on your face and then you put this stuff on top of it to make masks. So kind of a freaky looking picture, but calcium sulfate is a ionic compound that has a polyatomic ion in it, sulfate. It also has some water molecules, but that's another story for another day. So naming ionic compounds that have polyatomic ions, just the same way we do our regular binary compounds. You name the cation first, because it's always listed first in the formula. The metal is always the first one there. And it's usually, with the single exception of ammonium, it's usually just a single element. So it's really easy. Look at the beginning of your compounds formula, find the next capital letter, right? It's going to start with a capital letter, and then the second capital letter is the next element, and it's going to probably have some oxygens with it. So name that anion, which hopefully you're getting better at. But this time with the polys, we don't change the ending. So they already have usually ite or ate for their endings. Hydroxide and cyanide are examples where they use the IDE ending, but you never change the polyatomic's name. Okay, you just name what it is. So this is a compound that I hope you can name. Why is this not connecting? Oop, well, it says it's there. I'm not getting, so let me go down here. There it is. Pen blue. Okay, so here's my a good example. Capital letter N, lowercase a. Hopefully you all know by now that's sodium. Capital letter C, this is a lowercase l, okay? And so that's the new capital letter. That means all of this stuff, whatever's after the first element, is a polyatomic. So sodium is the metal, the cation, and hopefully you've done your practicing, right? Remember, chlorine can go multiple ways with oxygen. And all those names, those are fair game for today's quiz. This one happens to be the fewest of all the oxygens, or this is chlorite and chlorate. So this is hypo, lower than chlorite. And so again, the metal ion is the sodium, and then the hypochlorite is the rest of it. And so we just call it sodium hypochlorite. This is a coral in an oyster shell, and they are made of calcium and carbonate. So on your quiz, there'll be a periodic table again, just like the last ones, but you're supposed to know how to find calcium on the periodic table. Hopefully you know it's in the alkaline earth metals, group 2. And calcium, that means it has 2 valence electrons. That means it's going to lose both of those valence electrons. And hopefully you know about carbonate. So remember, Nick the camel ate the clam. So what the heck's camel, right? Carbon is the first. 1, 2, 3 consonants means 3 oxygens. 1, 2 vowels means a -2 charge. So calcium is going to have a +2 charge. Carbonate is going to have a -2 charge. They're just going to go together 1 to 1. Calcium, second capital letter. Oh look, there's all this stuff after carbonate. So that was actually taking a name and making a formula out of it. This one was taking a formula and making a name out of it. Okay? And you're going to have to be able to do both eventually, but hopefully it's getting easier. So this is in your car battery, there are lead electrodes, but there's also lead sulfate, and there's also sulfuric acid. And so that lead and the sulfuric acid end up making lead 2 sulfate. So remember, lead is Pb, bum bum. It can get a +2 charge, it can get a +4 charge, but it tells you right here in the name, that's not the one, this is the one. And then sulfate. So I see Nick the camel ate a clam for supper. So supper. S for sulfur. 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygens. 1, 2 vowels. So sulfate is SO4 with a 2- charge. This lead has a 2+ charge. Super simple. They go together, 1 of each. Okay. Capital letter, lowercase letter, lead. Second capital letter. Everything after it goes together as a polyatomic. No parentheses needed if it's 1 to 1. Okay, if you just need one of the polys, I should say, you don't need parentheses. So don't be putting anything extra in that isn't absolutely necessary. Okay. All right, so writing formulas of compounds of polyatomic ions, you can probably fill this in on your own. You write the symbol or the formula for the cation. So almost all of them, it's going to be a symbol. Okay, the element symbol. The one cation that has a positive charge is ammonium. So that's technically a formula because there's more than one kind of atom. Then you write the symbol or formula of the anion, and since we're doing polys right now, it's formula. Okay? And Add in some subscripts if you need to get the charges to 0. If they're equal and opposite, you just have to write them down. But if you need to get to 0, then you have to do the subscripts. And on the polyatomic ions, you have to wrap them up. Nice little package, wrap it up with parentheses. All right, so calcium is a +2. Nitrate is a -1. Oops, I should just put it over here. I'm not sure where my text is going to come up. So when you do the crisscross on this, you know you need 1 calcium, you need 2 nitrates. That's right where it was. I should have moved it over, sorry. Okay, so if you need 2 nitrates, then you're going to not do this. You're not going to write nitrate twice. And you're not going to write NO3 2. Okay, there's no 32 oxygens going on. So what are you going to do? You're going to put it in parentheses. This ion, and this ion are all free in the solution. This is normally in aqueous solutions, of course. And you just bundle up that polyatomic and put a 2 on the outside of the parentheses. And the crisscross makes it super easy. So try these on your own, and as I'm talking through them, see if you can figure this out. I hope you guys are doing handwritten notes while we go along. For those of you that don't print out the stuff, and certainly those of you at school, it's really smart even. How do I say this? So it's really easy to get distracted and to have your mind wander. And so if you're writing stuff down, it's more likely to stick, and it's more likely to keep you focused, and you have it for later to study. So magnesium and hydroxide. Again, you're supposed to know magnesium is a alkaline earth metal, or you should be able to find it in column 2. And then you need to recognize that hydroxide is a polyatomic ion. That's not an element, okay? So it's not on the periodic table. So hopefully you know that magnesium is a +2 charge, just like calcium. Hydroxide, hopefully you know, is OH. It's a -1 charge. We do the little crisscross. It's just like our calcium nitrate. We're going to need 2 hydroxides. Hydroxide is the one that's going to cause most trouble for remembering parentheses. Most of the polyatomics have a subscript after the second element because it's usually oxygen. Hydroxide doesn't. And so a lot of people end up doing MgOH2. Got to really watch out for that because that is Mg with an oxygen and 2 hydrogens. That's not what magnesium hydroxide is. It's 2 hydroxides. It's MgOH, OH. Okay. So this one's missing an oxygen compared to this one. This is a little bundle, a little package. You need to wrap them up. So magnesium hydroxides in milk of magnesia and antacid. Okay, potassium, pretty easy. Potassium is a +1. It's an alkaline metal, just like sodium. Sulfate, again, SO42-. I know I'm going to need 2 potassiums and 1 sulfate. The temptation, once you learn about doing parentheses, is to do them all the time. Potassium doesn't need parentheses. This just means KK. And then you just write sulfate. No parentheses around it because you only need 1. All right, I'm going to give you a second and see if you can come up with this, and I'll call on, let's see, shoot. If I do this, I'm going to write them down. How am I going to do this? I want to quiz you guys or test you, but I guess I'm not going to. I think I had the answers on here, so oh well. Test yourself. This is using that one polyatomic that's positive. And so ammonium, and this is sulfite. Remember, SO4 is sulfate, one less is sulfite, and it has the same charge, one less oxygen. So ammonium sulfite would be the name of this. We do 2 ammoniums with 1 sulfite. So this is the one time where you have to put parentheses on the cation. Excuse me. Okay. Notice the compound does not have charges. Only the ions have charges. So it's fine to write them to get your formula correct and do the crisscross stuff, but don't include them in your final answer. Calcium's a +2. Phosphate, that's Phoenix, right? Okay, P for phosphorus. 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygens. 1, 2, 3 vowels. So phosphate's PO4 3-. Criss-cross. I need calcium, calcium, calcium. Which of course we're not going to write like that. We're just going to write Ca sub 3. And I need PO4, PO4. Again, big P, big O, 4, 2. Okay, so I heard somebody bloop in. Let me find you guys. Bloop. Bloop. Kelly said her internet went out. Thank you. So hopefully, as I was doing those, it made sense to you. And I hope that was helpful. Any questions I can answer about the lecture? Any questions on that? Okay. What I'd like to look at is the lab. So the data table part of the lab, you filled that in last week with the precipitates that you saw. There were several, there were 5 of them that didn't have reactions. So I had you write NVR for no visible reaction. And then we got started with reaction number 1, but we didn't finish, okay? So here's what the remainder of the lab is, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them to do. We'll just do one more, and then we'll get to the quiz. You're gonna look at, sorry, getting seasick, number 3. Okay, let's go up to the data box and look at number 3. Number 3 was silver and phosphate. Okay. So I'm going to write the ion, the first part of this, just like we did up here, is I'm going to write the silver ion, aqueous. Instead of sulfate, I'm going to put phosphate aqueous. And then instead of silver sulfate, we're going to make silver phosphate. Let me give you a little hint. Do this with me. Highlight number 1. Copy. Take it down to number 3. Change the S to a P. Change the 2 to a 3. Yes. Change the S to a P. Change sub 2. So since silver's +1 and phosphate's -3, I'm going to need 3 silvers, not 2, to get to 0 charge. So that'll save you a little formatting if you remember to change all the pieces along the way. Okay. And then what you need to do is just write silver plus, oops, plus phosphate, boom, boom, greater than space, makes silver phosphate. Oh, silver plus sulfate makes silver sulfate, silver plus phosphate makes silver phosphate. So let's look at reaction number 4, because this is where it gets just a tad trickier. I'll do one more with you guys. This time we're looking at lead as our cation, and it's lead 2. And number 4 is with sulfate. So big P, little b, control period, 2 plus control period. And you can go back up here. Oops, we forgot the aqueous. Let me make that AQ. Okay. And since we're doing sulfate again, just, actually you can just grab this. Just grab this part. Copy. Paste. Okay. And then we got to pay attention to charges. So if you look at this, lead's a +2, sulfate's a -2. They're going to go together 1 to 1. So there's not going to be a subscript, and I need a PB here instead of an AG. The next part is naming it. And again, PB is lead. But because lead can have more than one charge, we've got to put the Roman numeral. Again, let me name it lead 2 sulfate. Okay, that leaves you with 1, 2, 3, 4 to do. Okay. Hopefully you're recognizing them. I'm going to give you a big hint. Number 9 and number 12. Make sure you put a Roman numeral in the names, because iron can have more than one charge, and number 6 needs a Roman numeral as well. Okay. Questions on the lab? Questions about ions? I see what you wrote on to one more time. Yes. NVR for number 2. Is that what you're asking? So that means there's no visible reaction when when number 2, or do you mean the second one I did today? Sorry, I don't know. Make it a little bit bigger. Again, the ions are in solution. They're aqueous. They form those cloudy precipitates, PPT. And we could say aqueous lead 2 plus aqueous sulfate makes lead 2 sulfate precipitate, but it's redundant, so I do that. Is that what you needed there? All good? Okay, perfect. All right, so no other questions?